Hey there, it's Angela, and I'm so glad you found your way here to architecting. Creative careers can be stressful, and it's hard to be vulnerable, but this is your landing pad for raw honesty. I'll help you get clarity, reconnect with your passion, and have the career of your dreams. If you're ready to make a difference, have an impact, and say bye-bye to burnout, stick with me, and let's get architecting. Hey there, bright lights. It's Angela. Welcome back to Architecting. This is a place where we aren't afraid to dream big, and I've made it my mission to help you get past all the overwhelm, stress, and burnout, all the self-doubt, all the reasons why you think you don't have permission to dream really big. So I'm going to get kind of vulnerable on this episode. I'm going to talk about something that at first is going to sound a little bit crazy, but stay with me and let me explain what I'm thinking about. If you have been following me and are part of the architecting community, you know that I'm very committed to the idea of design for well-being. It's something that I've always known. Even as a really young child, I knew space felt like something. I've always been interested in how human behavior is impacted by our environments. I studied this in school. It's been an ongoing research project for my whole career. And as I've worked more with this, I've also realized that equity is intertwined with design for well-being. When we look at what creates well-being versus what erodes it, what we're left with is the resources to cope. And it is very evident then that resources are not equally afforded to every human on the planet. And these are resources in our entire exposome. The environmental resources we have, as well as the socioeconomic resources that we have. This is very mission-driven work. Even in the early parts of my career, when I was living and working in Phoenix, I was on the Housing and Neighborhood Commission. I led an affordable housing task force, eventually chaired the commission, helped with the general plan, which had come up for renewal at that particular point. And these were all issues we were looking at even back then, how certain neighborhoods had disadvantages, how many people were being priced out of affordable quality housing. And certainly today, we know that even your lifespan can be impacted by your zip code. Equity, well-being, these are definitely in the category of things I don't shut up about. What does that have to do with what we do here at Architecting, which is doing the work we feel called to do no matter what, while still maintaining quality of life, not having the overwhelm, the stress, and the burnout? Well, it comes with being able to dream big. So the story I just told you about my career and what I care about, that through line that has followed me even through all of the different twists and turns that my career has taken over the years, that's what I want you to find for yourself. But what do we do with it once we find it? Because it's great to say, I care about whatever issue it is, and it's great to continue to learn and develop a skill set in an area of expertise around that. But it doesn't do us a whole lot of good, and certainly doesn't do anybody else any good if we don't take action. If our words and our work isn't moving the needle on any of this, then there's a huge disconnect. Last episode, I talked about the when-then conundrum, how we put all of these conditions on our ability to really do the things we know we want to do. And we never really feel qualified to take action from the point where we stand. I want to build on that today with that idea that I mentioned in that last episode of the person who. And in this case, in my own story, it means reaching for something that seems so audacious, so crazy that the first thought is to laugh it off, to dismiss it. And that is why I have set my sights on the Nobel Peace Prize. Yes, you heard that right. Now, do I think that right now, today, I am in any way qualified to be nominated for this prestigious award? Absolutely not. So let's clear that up right away. However, the minute you say it, then you have to say, well, what does it take to get a Nobel Peace Prize? Well, you have to be nominated, and there's only certain kinds of people who can nominate you, like governments or universities, which means that your work has to be seen as significant by those particular bodies who can nominate you. It also means that your work has to be somehow impacting a peaceful world, somehow facilitating that coming into being. And you might say, what does architecture have to do with peace? I immediately thought of the quote from Pope Paul VI that came from his 1972 Day of Peace address. And it was, if you want peace, work for justice. That's always been, to me, an incredibly powerful thought. Mass Architecture, a nonprofit firm that does a lot of work in Africa, has a book out called Justice is Beauty. There is such a powerful link between the resources we have to cope and justice, and if the built environment can give or take away resources people have, architects 100% have a role to play in justice. And as we play that role to work for justice, we are therefore helping to create a peaceful world. A world where everyone has the resources that they need to live their best lives. So it's not that crazy, right, to think about that. Knowing that what I believe about being an architect is aligned with the criteria to qualify for a Nobel Peace Prize. Now I have to say, what does the person who wins a Nobel Peace Prize as an architect have to look like? So I don't need to look at who's won in the past and try to imitate them, because they were all doing very different things. What I have to do is say, the person who would win a Nobel Peace Prize would be an unflinching advocate for justice in the built environment. The person who could win the Nobel Peace Prize as an architect would evangelize to anyone and everyone who would listen just how big of a deal architecture is, just how much of an impact it has. That person would not stop. That person would not take no for an answer. That person would look for every single opportunity to experiment with this, to test their designs after people have been living and working and playing in spaces that they've helped to create. That person would be talking to local governments. That person would be trying to pull other people in and educate them and hopefully inspire them to do the same thing. That person would not be holding these ideas close to their chest or looking to get all the glory for themselves. They would be wanting as many people as possible to know about their work, to build on their work, to make as much of an impact as possible. Now, I may absolutely never, ever, ever get nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. But by setting my sights on that, by not making myself wrong, by not immediately dismissing that as way too audacious of a thing to even say out loud, I can unlock what it looks like to be the person who could qualify. And I can align with being that person through the actions that I take in my life and my career every single day. And I want to encourage you to do the same. The next time you are at an award ceremony or you read about someone winning an award, maybe it's within the architecture profession, maybe it's not, I want you to think about what it would look like if one day that could be you. What if it could be you? What if you could be the person who could have that kind of impact? What would change about the way you live your life today? This isn't just about chasing glory or external validation. It's about using these very high levels of recognition as a benchmark to help you see what's possible, because people win these awards and they're not better than you. They're just taking action you're not yet, but you can. And if you can, you will have an impact. You don't need an award to tell you that you got there, but you do need something to go for, something to help you stay inspired and aligned, because there are disappointments every day. There are failures we encounter every day and setbacks. But we have to move past those and not see those as the clues that we should stop, but rather the challenges that when we overcome them will bring us even closer to being that person who. So I hope that this inspired you today to think big, to be audacious, to really go for it, because we only get one life. This is your career. What is your calling? How do you shift out of focusing only on the procedural things, the deadlines, the minutia of being competent in your career? How do you make the space for the things that matter to you? How do you take it outside of your personal interest or even a particular project or your firm? How do you take it bigger? How do you expand it? How do you build awareness and community around it? How do you supercharge the network you're part of around that issue? How do you uplift a community of people around that issue? That is your challenge, and I know that you can do it. I know that you have it in you, or you wouldn't be listening to this podcast. You'd have tuned out after the first listen way long time ago. If you're here, if you're listening, there's a part of you that knows you were called to a mission and a vocation, not just a job. You're not just here to pay the bills. You are here because you believe design makes a difference. I believe that too. And I am here to help you stay focused, keep your confidence up, and take those small right actions every day. If you too are interested in Design for Well-Being, make sure you head over to the Architecting YouTube channel and check out my Space Doctor series. I'm using a deck of cards I developed around all of my salutogenesis research. And every single week, I draw a couple of cards and I talk about those theories and how they relate to design and how they relate to one another. So every week is different, and they're usually about 10 to 12 minutes an episode. So it's a quick listen and you will learn a lot. So check it out. Thank you so much for tuning in, and don't forget to share your story with me. I love it when I hear from you about what insights or ahas you got from listening to a particular episode, what you felt called or inspired to do as a result. So definitely share it with me. Help build this community because more of us need to think this way. Share this podcast with a friend or colleague who you think could use a little inspiration right now. Make sure that you like, subscribe, leave a comment wherever you listen to this podcast. Until next time, stay inspired. Thanks for listening. If you want even more content, head on over to architectingpodcast.com and subscribe to my newsletter and get some great free downloads while you're there. Be sure to follow me on social media. On Instagram at Architecting Podcast, Facebook and LinkedIn pages are Architecting, and the YouTube channel Architecting Podcast. Stay inspired.